Firstly, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Paul Rowe, the CEO of Vernon Systems, and our company specializes solely in collections management software. So software to help a whole range of different organizations manage the things that they collect and preserve and share with people that are interested in those collections. In 2008, we developed eHive, and that was in response to some specific needs of small museums. We ran a series of focus groups, and there were several problems that people had with their existing solutions. The first of those were that often they didn't have a technical person in-house to manage a computer and the software and backups. And so with eHive, we manage all of the technology for you. The system runs in the cloud, and we manage the servers, the software, and the backup, and we let you get on with the collection management. Secondly, we found that lots of smaller organizations found that the current software on the market was too complex. So we've designed eHive to be as easy to use as possible, with lots of online resources to help you use the system. Lastly, we found that lots of smaller organizations had people that would like to work from home if that was possible. And so eHive, as it's a web-based system, is something that you can connect to from anywhere, from any device, a mobile, a tablet, any kind of home computer, and you can connect in, and then all of the software that runs the system is running at our end. So what I'll do today is just give you an overview of some of the main features of eHive. There's a public part of eHive where you can share your collections with all of the public that are interested in those. And you can access that public interface just on ehive.com, where I am now. So currently there's over 750,000 items from collections around the world that are available on the public side of ehive.com. There are also many private collections or collections where they intend to share them with the public in the longer term, but they're still working on cleaning up their catalogue data, photographing their collections, and so on. So from that homepage, as a member of the public, I could just do a simple search. I might be interested in all of the items that mention the words Royal Historical Society. And so running that search will give me a set of results of all of the things that match those particular keywords. On the left-hand side, there's simple filters to help me narrow down the results. So I could say I'm only interested in the items that have an image associated with them. We can also see that there's a number of different catalogue types supported in eHive. The system is designed to handle any type of general collection, from art to archives, from fine art to historical collections. There's 7 broad types that are built into the system, and each of those have a dedicated cataloguing screen focused on that type of material. So I could say that I'm only interested in the things that are in the art section. For every item that we find on the results page, the system will show us clearly what collecting organization holds that particular item. So in the case of this particular ornamental teapot, we can see that it's held by the Royal Historical Society of Victoria. I can click on that link, and every organization has their own profile page on the public website. On that profile page, you can upload photographs about your organization, including your logo. We can see the building, in this case for RHSV, and we can see some of their research library areas. Further down the page, there's areas for you to record an overview about your collection, details about how to contact you, information about what facilities you offer to the public, and a map location. On the right-hand side, we can see a breakdown of the collection of that particular organization. So currently there's over 30,000 items in this organization's collection, which are available on that public website. We can also search just on that one organisation's collection. So maybe we're interested in all of the items that mention the word Melbourne. This search will now search only on that one organisation's holdings and show those on the same results layout that we saw before. As well as filtering by things like the type of collection, we could also say that we're only interested in items that were made by a particular organisation or person, ones that mention a particular subject, or ones that were by a particular organisation. So if I was interested in only the things that mentioned a historic building, I'd just tick that box and only these items are matching that category. Each individual item will then have a set of information that's available to the public, but that's only the general identification information about that item. Behind the scenes, there's a whole lot of private information that you can manage within eHive, down to what location is that item stored in, how much is it valued, and what kind of conservation work might have been done on it. I'll do another example of a search. Let's search and see what cameo lamps have been catalogued within the eHive public interface. If I click into one of those items, you have complete control over what size of image is shared on the public site, or if the image is publicly available. So in some cases, you may share just the catalogue record because you don't own the copyright of the item. In other cases, you may have photographed it and you own the copyright of that photograph, and you could choose to share a very high resolution image if you wish to do that. So eHive has a full zooming and panning facility if you wish to share high resolution images. So that's as large as you would like, and we can just then zoom and pan around those images. Each individual item can have more than one image. So this is a three-dimensional object, and we have images from both sides and a separate image to show what that cameo lamp looks like when it's switched on. On the right-hand side, you can add quick keywords, which we call tags, and you can optionally allow public visitors to add their own keywords to your record. So that's something that you can decide at an organisation level. You can also optionally allow public commenting on those records. So you might have that switched off, but if you turn it on, then it's an option to gather further information about your collection from the general public. Any comments that are added automatically go into a moderation section of the website. So when you log into the system, it will show you new comments that have been added, and you get to choose whether particular ones are approved or declined, and you can reply to any of those comments if you wish. Each individual image also has rights to say what other people are allowed to do with those images. So this particular cameo lamp is in the public domain, and other people could reuse that however they see fit. But you could mark that with any license that applies to that. So if it was an image that's still in copyright, you can mark that as all rights reserved and clearly state that that image can't be reused without permission. We can also upload documents in PDF form. If I look for kauri samples, kauri is a type of timber in New Zealand. And we go into one of the records. So this is a sample from a particular timber yard. We can optionally attach PDF files. And again, like the images, you can choose whether or not those are available to the public. So in that case, there's an image about the related kauri timber industry that sample came from. You can also link in the description field of a record to third-party sites that might have further information that relates to that item. Lemon and Paeroa is a soft drink that's manufactured in New Zealand. There was a famous TV ad for that soft drink in the 80s. The owner of that particular advert, which is the New Zealand Film and Sound Archives, have uploaded that video to a separate website. So they've uploaded it to a video sharing website, and they've just added the link to that as part of the description in eHive. So if I clicked on that link, it'll go across to their film and sound archive, where they've got archives of a whole range of different audio clips and videos, and we could then watch that advert that particular item happens to catalogue. We can also search for organisations on eHive. So I've been searching for particular items that are catalogued, but through the search page, I can choose to search just for collections. And so I could say, show me all of the collections which mention the word Sydney in their profile. And there'll be a range of different organisations within there. I could click into one of those and go to the same kind of profile page we saw for the other organisations. So here's an organisation based in Sydney, and they've got 2,500 items that are publicly accessible in that collection. And again, we can find out where they are and what kinds of visitor information they have available. Lastly, on the Explore section, if you're not sure what you're looking for, that provides a different way of accessing the items that are publicly available. Perhaps you're just interested in what kinds of things are people cataloguing on eHive around the world. If I clicked into recently added objects, it will just show me the items that have been most recently shared on the public side. So these will be all items that have been catalogued within the last day or two, and they'll be from organisations around the world, from the UK to the US to Australia. For the organisations using eHive, they can log into the website to then securely catalogue and manage their collections. So the login page takes us to a login section where each individual person using the website has an email address and a password. They're then assigned a different level of access depending on what the organisation wants them to do. So you might have volunteers that are allowed to catalogue details. You might have supervisors that can add additional users to access your collection, or you might have researchers who only have read-only access to the private information in the catalogue. So I'll log into an example account on eHive, and we can see how the back-of-house system works. When you log in, there's a dashboard that gives you quick access to the things you're going to most commonly need within the system. So we can see on the left the items that I've been most recently cataloguing, including that cameo lamp that we saw before. Those keywords that we saw before also provide a shortcut to get to all of the records that share that same tag or keyword. And optionally, we can belong to a community, which is a group of organisations that share something in common. They might be in the same geographical area, or they might work on the same types of collection. On the right-hand side, I've got shortcuts to jump into all of the records that I have, and to do things like start creating new records if I've still got additional cataloguing work to do. Like we had on the public interface, I can do a search. But in the private interface, we can also do an advanced search on specific fields. So in managing your collection, you may need to look for a very specific set of records. I can go to advanced search and I can pick which particular field that I'm wanting to look at, and I can combine that with searches on any number of other fields. So maybe I'm interested in anything which has the word crystal in its name title, and at the same time is object type of perhaps mineral. Throughout the system, you can come up with term pick lists which standardize the data entry into a particular field. So that'll both speed up the data entry as you continue to catalogue your collection, but it also standardizes the cataloguing so you can do more consistent searches when you're coming to look for certain things in your collection. So these are the keywords that I've added in this small sample collection. With the additional filters section, I can also search on categories that are built into eHive. So all of the different organizations have these standard categories available. So I could say I'm only interested in the ones that have images and only the ones that are in the natural science category. And if I click on search now, it'll show me what things match that particular set of searches. So I've found 4 different collection items in those categories. I can click on one of those and I get to a layout that's similar to the public site, but with a lot more detail. So on the left-hand side, we can see, for instance, how we acquired that item, and we might want to record other details like where is it located and how much is it valued at. We can do that on the right. So here are all of the tools we can use to manage just that one item in the collection. We can do a copy of that record if we've got several similar things that we're cataloguing. We can edit that record or its associated images or PDF files. And in rare cases, you might decide to move something to the recycle bin if it's an item which shouldn't actually be in the collection. We can also update the rights for that item, and we can also create a quick report like a catalogue worksheet. So let's edit that record. And it'll bring up the cataloguing screen. So some of the fields are simple text fields, things like the name, title. Some of them have special features. Every item in your collection should ideally have a unique object number, and the system automatically tests to see whether there's a duplicate when you catalogue a new item with an accession number or object number. Everywhere where there's a term pick list, you can set up terms which apply to your organization, and those pick lists are automatically transferred over from any existing data that you have. So if you have existing data in perhaps a spreadsheet, we can bulk import that into the system for you, and the pick lists will be set based on the terms that have already been used within the catalogue records of that spreadsheet. So there are the same pick list terms we saw before. We can also see an automatic breakdown of how many records use each of those different terms. We can then add a new term if we're cataloguing something which doesn't fit into any of those existing categories. Many of the fields also allow you to put in repeating sets. So for instance, a natural science specimen, there might have been 2 or 3 people that were involved in collecting that from out in the wild. You'd record each of those collectors and what role they played, and then adding another set just lets you repeat those pair of fields for however many entries you need to record. So throughout the catalogue record, you can do things like record multiple makers or multiple subject keywords. Further down the page, we've got where the item currently is located. And you could create a hierarchy of buildings, rooms, bays, and shelves to precisely say where the item is currently held. And then when you move the item, you can also keep a full location history of where it's been in the past. At the top of the page, there's a shortcut to go to just the fields that the public sees. So that's just another shorter view of the same catalogue record. So the public only have access to 15 or so key descriptive fields about that item in our catalogue. There's also information about how you came to acquire it. It might have been a purchase on a particular date from a particular person. There's some general administration details. If we click into there, so you might say, well, what's the current legal status of that? Maybe it's an item that's been deaccessioned and it isn't in the collection anymore, would be an example. And there's a section for recording in detail what you know about the rights of that item, if it was still in copyright, for example. You can record full conservation information, what the current condition of the item is, whether there's any particular damage, and whether there's been any treatment work done on the item over time. And then lastly, we can record the valuation of the item in the last tab. So we can just record a valuation, or you can record other details like saying, well, the method was an estimated value, and this is the name of the valuer who came in to give us that estimated value. So that's an example of a natural science specimen. The same is true for all of the 6 other types. So these are the 7 broad types of collections that eHive can catalogue. And each of those has a dedicated cataloguing screen. So let's go into the library one. The basic layout is the same, but we have fields that are more relevant to books and publications. So we might know the title of the book, what edition it is. It might have an ISBN number that's been assigned to it. The label on the spine of the book might differ than what's on the cover. And then other general information, a basic description of what the contents of it are, details of who was involved in producing that book. So the author, the editor, the illustrator might be 3 different sets of information about 3 different people that were involved in the creation of that particular book. So that's the basics of cataloguing an item. I'll run another search. Let's search for everything that is a mineral specimen. Whenever we're on a set of results, there's a simple link to create a report. So you can create a report on any set of records at any time, and that could include searching for every single thing that's in eHive because you're wanting to take a backup to a Excel spreadsheet would be an example. The reports are built into eHive and cover a number of different layouts. So I could do a quick detail report, and I could call that mineral collection caps. When I request that report, it will run in the background, and then I can continue using the system in the meantime. When that report is ready, it'll just show me a number at the top to say that there's one additional report that's ready for download. If I go back to that Create Report screen, we can also download as a comma-separated text file, which Microsoft Excel is able to open up, or as XML, which is structured data, which can be sent to some other kind of computer system. We can see at the top that the report that I requested is ready to access. And so that page will show me all of the reports that I've generated but haven't yet deleted, and any of those I can choose to download. So there's my simple catalogue worksheet where I've done a detailed report of all the information that's available for each of those minerals that I searched for. The supervisor is the only person that's able to go in and change settings about the system, and that includes the public profile page that we could see before. Under the public profile page, we can see things like visitor analytics, so that's statistics about how many public page views you've had of the items that you've shared. And that may be something that you need to pass on to funders to show that you're getting benefit from sharing your collection online. The users section is where we can see what logins are currently active for your organization. And that's where you can invite other people to also help with working on eHive with you. If you invite a user, that's where you set what level of access will that person have when they log into the system. Lastly, we can also set which records are public. So if I go back to the home page and we look at one particular item, so let's have a look at that cameo lamp. It's as part of the information on the right where we can set what level of public access there is. So it'll show us at the moment whether it's public or private, and we can update that if we want to change it. So you might have catalogued something. It might remain as private for years until you've decided that that record is ready to be shared, and then you just click on update to change what level of access there is. That's also where you can share an item with a wider community of people that have similar collections or share the same geographical area. The largest example of a community on eHive is the NZ Museums community. Every museum in New Zealand, all 400 museums, have an account in eHive, and they describe information about their museum through that profile page. And then around 100 of them are cataloguing some of their collection to then share them in that joined community. So this whole website is coming from the data that's been recorded directly on eHive. The location of the museum is used to plot the different states of where those organisations are. And so these are all the museums that are within the Auckland region. I can click on any one of those then to see the same profile information we saw on eHive, but with the branding of the NZ Museums website applied to it. I can also search on that website, and it will only find items that have been marked as being part of that community. So it won't find those items that were from Sydney or Melbourne, for example. In addition to the main public eHive.com website, there's also an information site that tells you about the product and gives you details such as the pricing. So that's on info.ehive.com, and it'll give you an overview of all the main features, including how you can transfer existing information to the product, the different steps we take to protect your information, and things like international standards that we comply to. The pricing is based on the number of logins that you want to have for your organisation and the amount of content which we're storing on your behalf. So a typical user might have up to 5,000 records, and they would be on the bronze plan, which is 120 US a year. So approximately 200 Australian a year for that plan. Whereas a very large organisation like the Royal Historical Society might be on a gold plan, where it's a larger cost because we're covering the cost of both storing that information and managing daily backups, both to the same location and to a different city, covering the worst kind of disaster. There's also full online help for the product, and you can also just access that publicly. So that's on help.ehive.com. So if I wanted information about how to do cataloguing, I can just drill down through the different screens, and it'll show me screenshots of the product and step-by-step examples of how I can use that part of the system. Lastly, we've also created a detailed set of cataloguing guidelines to help you standardise how you manage the cataloguing at your organisation. So we worked with a group of 10 museums to develop those standards, and that's called Project ARC. And that goes down into cataloguing all of those different types of collections. And it goes step by step right down to individual fields. So if I scroll down, we can see for each field examples of what you would typically record there and what kind of stylistic conventions that you might have. You can also share your records on a branded website. So we have integration with the website development tool called WordPress, and you can take your eHive content and just apply the branding that you've set up in a WordPress site to all of your collection records. So this is one of our large UK sites, the Eden Camp World War II Museum. This digital archive page is directly connecting to eHive and is showing the same tags that are on eHive and the same records and images, but with the Eden Camp branding applied to that. So I could search for everything that mentions the word London. And at that point, it'll go away to the eHive website, find the relevant images, and present them on a results page with their branding. If I drill down into a collection item, we'll see the same basic layout as we saw on eHive, with images and whatever keywords and titles, etc. they've added against those. Another example is the Fan Museum, which is in London. So this is exactly the same part of eHive. It's the WordPress plugins, but we can see how they've styled their collection completely differently to that previous example. So there are the tags that they've added to their collection, and then some of the examples of the fans which they've catalogued within eHive. Lastly, we can also integrate with national collection providers like Trove in Australia and the Digital New Zealand archive within New Zealand. If I go to Trove, and we could search on something general like Maritime Tasmania, that's searching across collections from all different sectors all across Australia. Libraries, museums, galleries are all collecting into one single website where the public can visit that one place, and they don't need to know in advance which particular organisation might hold the items that they're looking for. We can see examples of newspapers, magazines, and images and artifacts. So here's an example of a sign which has been catalogued by the Maritime Museum of Tasmania. I can view that directly on the Trove website. But if I see how do I view the original source record for that, it will show me that that's available on their collection, which in this case happens to be on eHive. So that's a free service where you just sign a partnership agreement with Trove, and they automatically connect to our system and periodically copy your public information so that it's available on the Trove website with clear links back to your original content on eHive. So that gives you a broad overview of the different features that are available within eHive. Thanks very much for your time.